folks, welcome to the podcast Talk of Thought. I'm your host Anirudh, and I got Vinamre Kasanaa, who's a Boston University graduate, podcaster, writer, a critic, and a YouTuber, and I don't know what more he would be in future. Hey dude, welcome to the podcast.
Right now, I'm just a sleepless guy. Yeah, what's up, man? Good to be here.
Thanks, dude. Actually, you know what, dude? I've been watching your content like from a while now, and I
Mhm.
got like very pretty so many questions. But I thought of going all the way from starting the way I introduce you
Please,
towards from the Boston University.
sure.
So I always had this doubt that we are always taught in a way in India. There is a particular type of education system, and when you went to a elite university like Boston, what were the things that you had to unlearn and the things that you learned over there that you think that added value or credibility to you, personality or anything?
Hmm. What were the things I think there's too much gain here. Yeah. What were the things I had to unlearn, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had to unlearn, well, I'd already unlearned rote memorization to some degree after seventh grade in school, but primarily what I had to
Yeah.
unlearn was that I could not bullshit my way through my classes
Okay.
as I'd done in school, where if you knew something about, let's just say, CBSE business studies, you could basically pretend like you knew the rest of it and just write, and you would get graded for filling the pages up. I quickly realized that
Yeah.
that sort of jugaad way of Indian test taking would no longer work. Second,
Okay.
I had to unlearn not being challenged on my ideas, because one of the first things you realize in a country like the
Yeah.
USA, which is centered on discourse, discourse as in,
Okay.
I talk about something, I put an idea forward, you critique that idea, you put a counter idea forward, and we have a discussion. We all collectively try to arrive at the truth. This is just a
Okay.
hunch, but I believe that in India, the truth is passed down from an authority figure, and everyone's like, we'll gulp
Hmm.
it down now. This is the truth. So, learning how to understand that my ideas could be challenged, that I could challenge others' ideas, and then um, in India, it's usually you can often find that the bright students are easily pointed out in class because they're the ones who will always raise their
Yeah.
hands, always have something to say and stuff. But what's very surprising in Indian schools is that those students often are in agreement with whatever the teacher says, or usually introduce a new fact to the class. It's never a rebuttal. So I noticed the definition of what a bright student in the USA is changed massively. Beyond that, tons of things I had to learn from a cultural standpoint, such as
Oh,
learning how to respect other people's time, um, learning how to discipline myself, learning how to schedule my day, learning how to stand up for myself on my own without
yeah.
being without putting myself forward as a member of my family or my community or my city, any of those things. I mean, there's a bunch of things.
Mm.
I'm just trying to get through as many as possible without going to the nuances. But
Yeah.
there's tons of things you have to unlearn when you go to any new country, because I think I've said this a bunch of times as well. I read this fascinating line in this book called The Seventh Sense, which is power,
Oh,
fortune, and survival in the age of networks. So that guy, I forget his name, the author, he says that it's not just that you learn how to be bilingual. It's not just the ability to acquire the mother language, mother tongue, or like the official language of the country you are a guest in. It's also important to be bicultural, and
okay.
that often clashes with that can often clash with a lot of stereotypes slash ideas of what you think about the world that you bring in to that country, and being able
Okay.
to flirt with another culture in a way that you incorporate its best elements while still preserving that quote unquote Indianness, um, was like one of the biggest things that I learned that I still have till this date.
Wow. Okay. Got it. But don't you think that we can also imbibe that in our own culture too? Like what I understood from the conversation was the best thing about America is you're not accepting anything to the face value. You will question it, even though it can be the government or people. Your ideology is always questioned, and you're
Free
always in
speech.
that thinking. Yeah, free speech.
Hmm.
Yeah. And technically speaking, we in India also have that free speech, right? That's the reason protest goes on and all that
On
jazz.
paper, we do, but not really.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
So
Think about all the invisible tightropes even you or I have to walk on as YouTubers, right?
yeah,
As content
true.
creators. The topics we, circumambulate, what's the right? Circumvent, right? The topics
Okay.
we don't attack directly. I'm not gonna talk about this because
Yeah,
those certain folks will get offended. Or I cannot talk about this because this may cause some trouble. Um, you can
yeah,
pretty much brutally assault free speech in the ass in the USA and still be fine. And that's why
yeah,
their comedians are outrageously funny because
true.
because not only do they have the gift of humor, they can express it. And there's a culture of
Yeah,
tolerance around comedy far more than what we have in our own country.
that's true. In our country, like it goes crazy. People behind religion, nothing is questioned over here. I
Hmm.
feel that.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And I think again that lag has started coming. Can you please check that?
Seems fine on my end.
What really? Yeah, fine. I'll see it. Yeah, now it's fine. Okay. So we'll continue in just 5 seconds so that I can remove this line. Yeah. Yeah. So what I wanted to ask you is that even academically, when you have studied all the way like from India, when you went there, like you have done your course in advertising, right?
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you, the reason I want to ask you is because I want to do my masters in abroad, and
Hmm.
there were two questions that even my neighbors, my friends always ask me is that what difference would it make like if you go at that place, like if you can get the same resources over here, and second thing is what they would ask is the racism or the way you have to go through that discomfort zones, like there's a lot of black and white shit going on over there
Black
and
and
those
white
stuff.
shit. Um, so your question basically has two parts. One, what if we could just get the resources of a foreign university here in India?
Yeah,
Would the would going there be worthwhile? One, and your
yeah.
second part of your question is, with all the black and white shit going on in the USA, what do you think are the consequences of racism? Does it exist?
Yeah.
Right? That's generally what you're asking.
Yeah. Is
Um,
this actually there? Because I've not been there and you have already been there. So like,
I mean,
because I particularly amount of stuff I know, it is much better in places like Canada, UK or Australia compared to US.
here's what I will say. And I'm saying this on the record. Indians are some of the most racist people in the world, and I'm saying it as someone who's makes jokes about literally everything. Right? So
Yeah.
it's foolish, absolutely foolish to say, "Oh, USA में racism होता है." India में देख, have you seen the shit that happens in India? We we distinguish people. We stereotype people based on caste, gotra, right? Go even as far as ki
Yeah.
some locality. We are super racist, and we enjoy that. All of us have had a collective agreement ki we're all going to enjoy this subtle brand of
Yeah.
racism that we follow. And then
Yeah.
a couple of us point out, yeah, this is being racist. They're like, hey, come on, this is India, right? So it's in the USA, it's just like any other country, right? There's always going to be bad
Yeah.
apples. I hate to use like such a simple example, but like that's what it is. If you cannot expect to be like you cannot expect any country to make you feel safe. If that happens, well and good. Congratulate the legislators, but the onus is on you to protect yourself. The onus is on you to
Yeah.
see, even if an incident like whatever you're talking about happens, my bad, racist incident happens. The onus is on you to deal with it. It's unfortunate if it happens, but it's just like any other country. I really don't think that.
Yeah.
Uh, I do believe that because the media in the USA amplifies its problems far more than the media organizations of other countries, that it looks like the problems of the USA are the biggest problems of the world, which is not the case at all.
Okay. Got
And
it.
to answer your second part of the question, I generally believe even if you brought all those resources here, which universities like maybe Ashoka University or
Yeah.
a couple of universities like even like I think Xavier's, Symbiosis are trying to some degree to mimic a US style of education by getting foreign professors and all of that. You still have to realize that you are still immersed in the culture, in Indian culture. So
Okay.
you have a foreign education. You have like like where you can have discussions in classes where you like write essays, assignments, critically think, all of that, but you're still immersed in
Yeah.
India. So here you are doing this Western kind of education, but you don't have the sort of bedrock to make that worthwhile. So it really isn't worth it without the cultural part of it. It isn't really worth studying what people in the US study without being immersed in a city where you can go and experiment with that, where you can go and explore what you learned.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, man, it was cool. And even I thought that, like, for me, the reason I wanted to go do masters or other country was because I thought I can be exposed to cultures of different people
Sure,
with different cultures.
sure.
And along with that, it feels like we in India, especially, we prone to our own comfort zone. Means like a community है, उसमें रहना अच्छा है. Like I
Right.
personally is more better. Like in my home, with better thing, being a guy from good caste, good home, everything is cool. The moment you go out there, you don't have this baggages coming with you. No protection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it goes crazy in that way. And to ask you what, so when did you start your podcast? Like, what was the motivation? Or like, when did you start? Even if it was like way back, right?
Yeah, it's
The
been a while.
Vitruvian podcast.
It was called the
Yeah.
Vitruvian Man podcast. Yes. I
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
that you've done your research. Um, I think it really happened. So what happened is I knew that media studies was like the right thing for me, even though a degree in writing would have just made me like a loser literary English major talking about like too it was too little too prosaic. So I like that media provided like an outlet to use my skills in the practical world. I've been very aspirational in my life, but I also realized that one needs to make something of those aspirations. So
Yeah.
I was doing an internship at Mr. Rajat Kapoor's office, the guy who's directed Aankho Dekhi. This
Yeah.
was in 2018. So I'd come back from college for the summer to intern at his office, and I was a casting associate at this office. And I give a lot of credit to immersive experiences where you live your ordinary life and then suddenly you decide to immerse yourself in a new environment
Okay.
for a specific period of time to do something very specific. So
Hmm.
the environment is Mumbai. The environment, the job is casting for him for his next film, right? And my colleagues are now all
Yeah.
directors, actors, cinematographers, editors. So it's like I have a slice of indie Bollywood with me now, and just seeing that explosion of all these talents being able to like as a how old was I like 21 year old auditioning Kubra Seth or like all these big actresses and actors, just like absurd that this is happening with me, right? That I'm holding a camera and auditioning them.
Yeah.
um, really made me realize that maybe there's something that can be done, because even though I was behind the camera, I was still, what I would do in these auditions basically is I would try to improvise, which was slightly frowned upon because, well, if you were a casting associate in such a big director's office, you're not expected to improvise, right? Because
Yeah.
it's very likely you might offend someone. But
Yeah.
I've always been a risk taker that way. So I realized, there's something that can be done here where I'm already sort of behind the camera doing stuff with the camera. Maybe I can just talk. And this is at the same time when I had discovered the Joe Rogan experience, and I was listening to Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss simultaneously, and I was like, you know
Yeah.
India is like an early market for podcasts, but I still have 1 year of college left in the US. So why don't I go back and
Yeah.
start a podcast and see what happens? And so that's how the Vitruvian Man podcast started, because I was a big fan of Da Vinci. Left this internship, went back to the USA, in my own bedroom, cleared up all the space, put two chairs, started a podcast, and got the first guys I could get on. Really awesome guys who
Okay.
helped me start my podcast. Friends who were also on their way to become experts, right? Because I didn't have access
Yeah.
to what I do now. I have access to great guests now, but I didn't have it back then.
Yeah.
So, like for you example, right? This is your podcast. Like I'm very sure, like if you leverage my name to whatever little degree of
Yeah.
popularity I have on YouTube, you can get like another guest, right? So it's
Yeah.
it's it's just that same way I started, and it just went down from there.
Wow, that's cool. So, why did you change from the name from Vetruvian to the Vinamre Kasana show that you have right now? Was like,
Because I used to believe, oh my God, you must have a niche right from the get go.
yeah,
But I clearly realized human beings and brands should be dynamic. And as I was changing, I felt the podcast should change. I mean, one, I was about to come back to India. And the Vitruvian Man podcast felt like I was suffocated because it implied that I only had to bring on, because what does the Vitruvian Man represent? The Vitruvian Man is basically a
yeah,
painting by Da Vinci, right?
yeah,
Which is like the proportions of the perfect man, right? So the idea is if you understand the proportions of the human body, you can understand the proportions of the universe, right? This is before the
yeah,
metric system existed. This is before like any degree of unitary measurement existed, right? So you would measure stuff
yeah,
by, okay, this table is 5 hand lengths or 5 arm lengths. So the Vitruvian Man
yeah,
was a repetition of all of that. So I was like, okay, Da Vinci is basically a master of the arts and
yeah.
he's also a scientist. So why don't I get people from both domains? But that
True.
was getting suffocating because then I was like, I'm like boxed in. I'm far more than just this. I don't want to be like that guy who celebrates human achievement, but really has like more stuff to offer. I wanted to speak
Yeah,
far more than listen. So I figured, why not like just make it my own podcast? And that's how the
yeah,
Vinamre Kasanaa Show started. Because the good thing about having my own name in the podcast is as I change, the podcast will change. I don't have to ascribe to a specific topic.
yeah. Got it. Even like I've been looking at your podcast, and the one of the different thing, like I listen to a lot of podcasts, and what I
Right.
understood from your podcast compared to others were
Mm,
like two things. First thing is with others, I listen to them because of the guest. Like if
mm,
there's a guest that I really like, I listen to them. But with your podcast, I think I mostly listen to what questions you ask, because I will tell you the reason. Most of the hosts that I have seen till now, like all the top podcasts that you can quote, I can see not the Western but Indian.
right.
I could see a level of thing that they give a host like the guest a pedestal, or they have this intense curiosity that I feel on screen that okay fine it's cool, but with you what I felt is you don't get intimidated by the guest. This is something that I really liked about, and I wanted to ask you, like, you never get
Yeah.
intimidated by the guest or like anyone?
Yeah, that's a huge compliment, by the way. I never thought about it like that. I'm glad that you see it like that. No, I mean there have been times where I've been slightly nervous and intimidated. I don't know if you watch the podcast I have with Rajat Kapoor, which is terrible audio. It's on
Yeah, I
YouTube.
did.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So,
did. I saw.
yeah, so I had to pay someone to do the whole subtitles because I couldn't get another recording. But I was pretty nervous because this was my boss, my ex-boss, and a man I greatly, deeply respected. So it's not like
Yeah.
I was super intimidated. But I think I have a way of easing into conversation where I don't judge myself and I let my curiosity take the best of me. So it goes in absurd places, and I think the guest usually sees that. And if I wanted to do a propaganda piece, then I would behave like, oh my god, aap or aapka bada dick, but I don't, because it's one of the things I've stolen from, and this only recently came to me from this other podcaster in the USA called Tyler Cohen. He says after every podcast or before every podcast, I think he says, this is not the conversation you want to have. This is the conversation I want to have. So it's basically a very, very selfish thing. And if it helps the listeners, great. But it's like stuff that I want to ask. It's like Sneha Kanwalkar, right? Famous music director, Gangs of
Yeah.
Wasseypur. Um, one of the most fascinating talents to ever exist in Bollywood.
Hmm.
I'm interested. What got her to that place where she can play with sounds like that? Not like, oh my God, Sneha ji, what do you think about? You're like the only woman in Bollywood. No, like that's like a media mouthpiece propaganda esque question. That's not what I want to ask. Um,
Yeah.
so it really stems from I have access to these people now. They're getting on my podcast. Let's make it about, oh my God, there are so many specific things that I want to ask you. This is for me. And when you
Yeah.
just naturally channel that, the the byproduct of that is a great conversation, the which people like you are like, wow, you don't feel intimidated because it's a conversation for me. It's not for you or for anyone else or my
Yeah.
listeners, quote unquote.
Yeah. What happens usually is that the moment you get someone, that you have been looking for a longer time, like, I'll tell you what happened. I got
Right.
one, like the first guest I got, I didn't know him. He was like from a referral, and he had like way too many subscribers, like around a lakh and all. And I got him. I had a conversation with him. It was cool. I
Right.
didn't get like, okay, fine, I'm gonna talk to him. Like I was not like, super excited. It was like a friend and stuff. But when I was about to get you, I was like, damn, I watch his channel every day. I'm gonna get this person on my podcast. And there is a social hierarchy automatically established that damn, this guy is smart. Like that thing that comes, and I guess that kind of overleads our own conversation too. That happened with me, like first time experience, like
Hmm.
with you that I got with, like
So
before I was about to
yeah.
get you. Yeah,
Never
it
get
could be that.
YouTubers on your podcast. Get someone who's laterally famous. Yeah, matlab,
Yeah.
it's just like I'm just saying that as a joke because, um, yeah. So one of the things you could do if you want to not have that, because I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know like why you would feel that. I can understand being intimidated.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the things you could do is, this is good advice that I just naturally decided one day, ki I'm going to do that. Get people who are super famous, just not on social media or just not on YouTube.
Ah,
Because what that does is it establishes your credibility and you have fun, and you don't have to feel like this person is watched or I consume their content. You know what I mean? And also
yeah,
because
yeah.
maybe
Got it.
it's just different for me. I just I don't remember the last time I got a YouTuber on my podcast because I don't I don't really consume a lot of YouTube content. I barely watch any videos apart from my own. You can call it narcissism, but it's just that like I'm not very interested in the whole YouTube culture. I'm a
True.
publisher who comes here to publish my stuff and walk away. Um,
Yeah.
so maybe I don't know. I don't know if that'll work for you.
I think it will because, to be honest, I got Rohit Raj, like the co-founder of Glitch, on my podcast, and at that time I wasn't like that intimidated, and even that had a better result. Like by
Right.
using his name, I leverage other bigger guests.
Right.
So it even helped me for the credibility, and it wasn't like, oh my god, I'm gonna get this person. A lot of people are going to
Yeah.
hear me, all
Yeah. No.
that stuff.
You can solidly basically what you do is you get people who are not on YouTube but are conventionally famous and conventionally
Yeah,
talented, who just don't have access to broadcast their thoughts. Right. I mean, if we
yeah,
talk about the advertising world, the only guy who's has any credibility in this entire thing, like serious credibility and like has a serious media brand, is Varun Duggirala from Glitch itself.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So getting him on now would be slightly difficult, but like getting his
yeah.
other guys like the way to go. You basically want to get people who are super famous but their story hasn't been told the right way, or YouTube or the audiences are not familiar with them. That's a great way to build your podcast guest roster.
True. I will guarantee look into it. Even I was also like, I actually had a talk with him, and he told that I was thinking like there are no regional podcasts in my area. Like there are no Telugu podcasts. So I was talking to him, and he was like, if I ever start a Telugu podcast and I've done like 3 4 episodes, he would come for sure
Or you
because
speak
he know
Telugu?
he's also, yeah, his mother
Definitely,
tongue is Telugu.
yeah, definitely check out UPSC Telugu podcast. It's by a friend, a very good friend of mine, Nikhil Dintakurti. Him and I used to work at
Oh,
IVM Podcasts, and it's one of the top podcasts in Telugu section. Really, like Telugu podcasts are flying off the roof right now. So if you start a Telugu podcast originally, for sure, for
yeah.
sure, for sure.
Yeah. I will check out that podcast too, because I feel that the we even when I started out, it was mainly English because first thing is when I doing the moment it comes to regional, right, Hindi and Telugu, the way even my college attendance and shit, like the level of stuff it goes down the moment it comes in English. We don't know, we have a lot of fascination for English, so it automatically comes. But when I started watching, like in Hindi, there are a lot of content creators. Like I watch your channel, like Prakhar or anyone, like there are
Hmm.
a lot of content, but I feel regionality it's missing. Like so I just thought that this would be a great opportunity, like to start off, and it would be like first creators.
100%. And
Yeah.
you know why that'll be a good opportunity? Because so this is something I also felt with I
Hmm.
spoke about it on PPTP a little bit. Like um, when I started an English podcast, I realized that the barrier to consuming my content was very high for my
Yeah.
Indian friends, for my Indian family. Because when you first start off, all you have is supporters. If you're lucky, is your friends and family, right?
Yeah.
That the internet takes over and the market rewards you for your thoughts, whatever. Um, so I realized ki there is clearly the Vinamre that is mostly Vinamre, which is mostly like a Hindi speaking guy that isn't being broadcasted. And I had serious doubts about that, whether I want to
Mm,
broadcast that, whether I want to bring this out. And it's the best if I think you're lagging a bit. Yeah, I think it's the best gift I could give to myself.
yeah, got it. Okay, so that made the evolution of Shaatir.
Of course, because it's okay. I just have to sit down and speak. With with the English podcast now, also like it's way easier now, because I
Yeah,
mostly get Indian guests and we speak in English, and I sometimes dabble into Hindi as well. But like, I think what happens is when you want to first start putting yourself out and you haven't had exposure to regional content, I think you look down upon it in a certain way. At least I did, in the sense that I don't want to, you know, just expose myself like that. Let me just do something cool and intellectual, which is
yeah,
fine because that's a part of me. A
yeah,
very large part of who I am likes the pursuit of knowledge, and a lot of that happens in the English language, right? But a
yeah,
big part of me is also funny. A big part of me is also educational in
yeah,
Hindi, and why deny that part the opportunity to broadcast? So I think what we will see in the future is a lot of Indian creators will have bilingual channels. It's already happening. I see a bunch of creators doing it,
yeah.
and it's only going to go up from here because they'll realize that there's an aspirational part of me, the English part of me, and then there's the real me, and I think
Yeah.
it'll be nice.
True. And even like right now, what I see is even the content is growing. Like before, like I guess before the pandemic happened, it was all like you have to have a proper set lighting and all things should be right. And right now, it's like especially when I look at you or like your friends doing stuff, it's more like okay, let's put out the content and even that content can be interesting. Like that I felt
What do you mean?
really. Like for example, at starting the when I was about to start the podcast that I was exposed to would be like, for example, the beer biceps, or yeah, I only remember that. Yeah, so what
Hmm.
used to happen in my head was, damn, I need to have that camera lighting, it need to be like really set, and I have to ask this one after this question, and I have to be like really curious, I can't interrupt the guest. Like there were few basic rules setting up in my head. And then the moment I was exposed to like you, from you I got to know about Prakhar. And when I was exposed, and then I was like, dude, these guys don't care. Like they just come before the camera and they are talking, and it's interesting to me. Fuck, like let me do the same thing.
I'm so
And I
glad.
understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I understood the thing that even if your conversation, that's the main point, if it's interesting and you can be curious and you can ask the question, you don't have to get intimidated, that would be interesting to people too. So I was
Yeah,
like
bro,
exposed to that.
there's no copybook style to this, and that's what I also realized. So it's very funny that you say that because I think everyone feels that at a certain point. You want to, when I first started my podcast, the Vitamin Man podcast, it was about
Yeah, yeah,
let's talk about these topics. Let's celebrate how amazing science and arts are, right? Let's do it in this specific way because I wanted to see
yeah,
myself in the US charts. Then I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
fuck it. This is who I am. I mean, why not put this guy out? Because this guy lives, eats, breathes, shits, but this guy doesn't get to speak. The other guy gets to speak. Why? And it's incredible to just bring your life offline, online, as opposed to creating something, fabricating something, manufacturing something. There's nothing wrong with it because that's also art. Um,
yeah,
but I think what is happening is people are craving authenticity, and anyone who can deliver
yeah.
that is going to win because they don't want someone who's above them. They want someone who's okay with their faults, someone who's like, this is who we are, right? And
Yeah,
we're going to see more and more of that.
that's true. Even the authenticity. And when I feel the moment you become authentic and you be like, delivering the honest content and true self whom you are, people who you will be liked if you're not authentic, like by a larger group, but to be loved, you have to be in that authentic sense.
Right.
So is there any hate rate for being authentic, like online hate and shit?
Sorry, your voice got cut off. Can you say that again? Or hate, authentic. What did you say?
Did No, I mean, did you get hate rate because of being authentic or like anywhere in your channel?
Sure. I mean, I do get hated even now. I just laugh about it because it's just absurd. I think I have a very hard skin around hatred and compliments because I still realize, look, it's still me in this room. Maybe my parents are like, wow, you're doing great stuff, whatever. Like, but it's still me in the end. I mean, these people, they're great. If they're with me in this journey, fantastic. If they're not, still, it's me who have to do it, who has to do it at the end of the day. Not my friends, not my family, not anyone else, just me. So whatever stuff that comes my way is just feedback. I take it. I don't think too much about it. That's the way it is.
Wow.
And that's the cost. One of the things you realized about anything is
Yeah.
entrepreneurship is a high conflict business because you have to deal with a lot of uncertainty. Content creation is also a high conflict business, especially when you're authentic, because you have to deal with a lot of uncertainty, conflict, hatred, chaos, all of that. And that's a part of it. And if you can't deal with that, then do something else. Because as you
That's
decide to
true.
scale up, it's only going to increase. There's this famous song by Hindi rapper Seedhe Moth that I recently listened to, which is called Doguna. So they were basically talking
I'll
about like
listen
once
to
they
it.
became famous, do
Hmm.
gonna stress, do gonna depress, do gonna ye. It's like everything gets two into, and you have to be ready to fight that. But the funny thing, the great thing is, when all these problems increase, you also increase in response.
Yeah. Got it. Hmm. And even like right now, I just want to shift to even your next channel, like Shaatir. Like,
Yeah,
when did you get into the writing? Like, was it from like childhood, or like when did you think that you want to influence your audience with writing?
I have been told by numerous friends, including Prakhar, and I've had many people in my life to encourage me, which is something I'm very lucky that way that many people encourage me to do it. Because from what I know about the world, is
Yeah.
lots of talented people don't get encouraged, and it takes them a long time, maybe no time, maybe like they never do it. They never put themselves out. But I was encouraged. So I think I was driving one day with Prakhar, and he said that it's really really time that you put it out. We're all waiting to see what you do. And then the same feedback I was getting the entire time this lockdown, like you should really put something out because people were approaching me for writing advice anyway. Like, Vinamre, can you edit this? Can you help me with this? I'm like, fuck it, why not? And one of the first things I had to realize is, okay, Vinamre, you're not a perfect writer. You barely have anything published. All you do is like you've maybe written some articles,
Yeah.
essays in the past. You've like written some captions here and there. You've written like some tweets. How can you call yourself a writer and then broadcast? Isn't like that? Are you being an imposter? All those things. And that's when I realized I have to make peace with something. I may not know
Yeah.
everything, but I know enough to help everyone else who's at 3 or 4 steps behind me in this journey. And that's exactly what I
True.
did. And that's how this thing picked up. And it's been picking up ever since. And in fact, this week I'm doing 4 or 5 different live streams having nothing to do with writing, just to change up the vibe a little
Yeah.
bit and see what happens. But I just go back to writing content again because there's what I realize also with the writing content. It's not so much about me giving you a new tip or trick.
Yeah.
It's really about a simple idea. Look, here's a paper, here's a pen. You can do something with it. You can figure your life out on it. You don't need me to say, here's a new tip to do it. You need me to reinforce it again and again and again so that you finally do it and have the same benefits that maybe I have had or people before with me have had. That's it. It's I hate to use Kevin Spacey. Have you watched House of Cards?
Yeah, I did House of Cards. Yeah,
Right,
I
right.
did.
So Kevin Spacey says this thing in that. He's like, you don't want me to stand for something. You just want me to stand. And that seems like such an evil thing to say. But I agree with that. It's like sometimes people just need people to be placeholders for specific ideas. So I'm the guy who wants to represent that idea that you can write and figure your life out, that you can understand yourself on paper, that you can integrate parts of yourself that you've hidden from yourself, that you can sharpen your thinking all on paper. I want to be the guy that represents that idea. And
Wow.
if it takes me 10 videos, 30 videos, 3,000 videos, I'm happy to do it.
Wow. That's great. And even I've been watching, right? Like, I
Mm.
guess your audience also, like, I've been watching all the way from how to write, and also I really like that stream. One of the best advice. Like, I could
Mm.
call it advice because no one has told me anything. There was this point in a video where you told that we often when we even write the journal or diary, we write it in a perspective that there is someone going to come and look at it.
Right, right. We write from the
And
perspective of an audience. कि कोई देख रहा है मेरे को.
yeah,
हाँ.
the moment we try to eliminate that and tell that अरे भाई तू तेरे लिए लिख रहा है बस लिख.
Right.
And when I started doing that, I even felt that I got ease. Like, writing is a cheap therapy, that as you told. Yeah, you
100%.
told, right?
100%. So I someone I know told me that they spent years in therapy and then they realized ki and many actually not one person, like many people have told me that free writing helped them to write better jokes. If they're
Yeah.
comedians, it helped them to understand themselves.
Hmm.
It became the basis for their next video idea. So a
Yeah.
lot of creators have reached out, which is fantastic because
Wow.
it works for almost everyone. It's just that the idea is so simple that no one talked about it. No one talked
Yeah.
about it
True.
in like a simple way in Hindi. Like, look, you don't have to write big words. You don't have to impress me with how great sentences you can make. You just have to write for yourself because it's not about broadcasting to the world. Sure, if you want to broadcast, do it later. It's just about the gift that the paper gives you to figure yourself out, to freeze your thoughts in time. I think just that message um can change a lot of
Wow.
people's lives.
That's true. So even with the, I sometimes I doubt. Did you do the degree in Boston for advertising or for writing in literature?
I did a degree in advertising, and then I also had a minor in religion. So I
Wow.
took a lot of religion classes, which is super interesting.
Wow. Really?
Hmm.
What do they actually like? I wanted to understand like how do they structure the religion classes? Like
It's very
they pick up
interesting.
a religion and what is it?
So it really depends. So you have professors who specialize, right? So you have professors who maybe would have PhDs in Judaism, right? Or
Right.
Judaic thought. Like they would have a PhD in the similarities between Confucianism, which is a Chinese religion, and
Yeah. Yeah.
Judaism,
I'm
right?
aware of
Right.
it.
So,
Yeah.
and so they would specialize in that. Then what they would do is whatever their intellectual interest is, plus whatever they think would make a good class, they make a course out of that, or they make several courses out of their interests, right? Then you as a student get to pick up which courses you want to follow. So among the numerous religion classes I took in college, some of them include stuff like religion and science. How can you integrate these classic ideas? And that was very interesting because this guy had like all the religious scriptures sorted. Then he also had writings from Are Human Beings Cyborgs? What is spirituality, quote unquote, in an era of religion? So juxtaposition. Then there were
Yeah.
classes like a comparative study of religion, very traditional, where you get 9 or 10 or 15 different texts from different religions and their interpretations, and you try to compare all of them and see what are the similarities, what are the differences,
Yeah.
what is the underlying thought, right? And so the theme
Yeah.
of the class was like how to live a good life, right? And so what does each religion have to say about living a good life? Then there's a very advanced course that I took, which was a course in Sufism, um,
Wow.
and like
Sufi.
a course in religion writing, which is by far the best course I ever took. So it's like,
Wow.
how do you write about religious experiences? How do you write about your relationship with God, quote unquote, or your lack thereof, right? Um, and so a lot of these classes were like, to be very honest, with all the advertising stuff, I got the practical chops, but the real
Yeah.
heart came from these classes because
Yeah.
I could not justify doing a degree in religion to my parents or to myself. But even a minor in that was like, thumbs up.
Wow. Cool. So you kind of have an analysis with the science and also religion, and you're trying to solve the issue with all the angles that
I'm
you
not
can
trying to
see.
solve any issue. I'm just saying that my degree was in advertising, and this is just something that I did because I was so into it. I tried philosophy classes, but they bored the fuck out of me. I
Yeah.
really tried. I mean, there was some were really nice. A class in
Uh,
existentialism was fantastic. I remember my roommate and I both took a class in existentialism and both got depressed immediately because it was the first time we realized that the extents of human thought could go all the way to the underground where the devil lives, quote unquote. So that's a
wow.
classic example from Fyodor Dostoevsky's Underground Man, which is if you
Wow.
haven't read that book, read it, you will get depressed, and then suddenly you will have this amazing realization. Because
Wow.
one thing I realized is in my entire years of being an Indian, like a son, whatever in India, is that I had never been exposed to. I'd always been exposed to how good humanity could be, but I'd never been exposed to how bad humanity could be. And so that course exposed me to the
Uh,
extent of human evil and the extent of what human beings could do when they realized that nothing mattered. And that course really helped me deal with a lot of stuff that I thought was dark inside me.
wow. But like, don't you think you're putting when you put yourself in situations like that, like when you're reading, like never you thought to like quit it?
Of
Like
course,
it's
of course,
discomfort.
of course.
Oh,
I thought about it multiple times. But that's the beauty of being in this discomfort. Because if you, what is that feeling trying to tell you? It's saying that this is something they should explore because it's getting unsettling. Go further
yeah.
and see what it is. If you try to avoid the underground will one day possess you and eat you up. Better to learn how to deal with it now, when you have the time, when you are young, when you still have a bedrock of stability, security via means of family or youth, whatever. Because I think this is one of the things that there needs to be more discussions around. We have a very positive aspirational underlying myth in India that everything is one code, which is great. But there isn't enough education around the extent of what human beings can do when they become evil. And these are some of
Yeah.
the ideas that Jordan Peterson propagates when he says, "Go read the Gulag Archipelago," or "Go read,
Hmm.
the writings of people who lived in concentration camps," because it'll make you realize कि आदमी किस हद तक गिर सकता है. We all know, oh my God, this saint did this fantastic thing, and wow, such an angel. But we are not as acquainted with the devil. And being acquainted with the devil will balance us out, will make us
Yeah.
stronger. And so that class really started the journey for me into that.
Yeah, that's true. We should actually have some classes like this, or like, somewhere in the culture, I feel that we should also be introduced stuff like this.
Absolutely.
Because even with me, like the moment I find some opportunity, I'm ready to expose. But the moment it's like I have to physically involve, like my friends asked me to let's go for a trek. I was like, damn, this is so sunny. I don't want to go. Like, let me just stay at home. But this discomfort, like for example, reaching out to a person online, asking them, doing a podcast, putting it out. Initially, it was like, damn, I'm gonna like people are going to see me. They're gonna tell you ask a stupid question. Or, like there will be judgments. But I'm like, it's fine. Let's just put it. Like I'm talking to that
One of
person.
the best quotes you will ever learn, and this is a
Yeah.
beautiful note to start to end the podcast, is the fool is the precursor to the hero. This is one of my favorite quotes because I'm so happy with being a fool online. बेवकूफी कर दी कुछ फालतू बोल दिया because this is how you become a hero. You have this is where you want to be, this is where you're at. You can't just go like whoosh. For the people who are listening on audio, if you're at point A, which is a high hill, and you want to go to point B, which is a higher hill, you can't just go like, I'm going to walk a straight line, use a bridge. No, you have to fall in the abyss, down, where it's dirty, where you make mistakes, where you, tussle with a new identity. Fuck, I have to do this and do that. That's all a part of it. And so I think one of the reasons why whatever degree of content that I have is becoming successful is because I'm not trying to be this I know everything guy. I'm just like, look, I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to be a fool and I'm going to say stupid things. Watch my first 5 podcasts. If you don't cringe, change my name. Because they're super cringy. I have a fake accent and I'm so enthusiastic, overly exciting. But I'm so glad for that Vinamra, for that foolish, ignorant, arrogant, blind Vinamra to take that first leap. Because if he didn't, this guy wouldn't be here. And I'm sure for
Yeah.
this guy as well, 10 years from now, if I didn't do what I'm
Yeah.
doing right now, the guy 10 years from now wouldn't happen. So kudos to you. You're doing that. You're getting outside your natural domain, your comfort zone, whatever.
Yeah, true. And even I want to ask you this. Initially, when you're trying to build up the YouTube audience or the community that you have got right now, how
Right.
much do you think is your people that you know, and how much big community did you make that people don't even know they approach you?
I
And
it's
did you
90.
ever,
Yeah, it's
yeah, did
90%
you ever
people.
play
Hmm. I
ads
haven't.
and
So
all that? Just
sure. So two things. One, I don't think I have a large community yet. I have a very close community, yes, because it's just been 2.5 months of serious YouTube, to be very honest. Um,
yeah.
90% people who are in my community, I don't know.
Oh,
So the internet has taken over very massively,
yeah.
right? Family and friends may watch my content once or twice and whatever, but that's fine. I don't need them. I love them. I love the encouragement, but like the internet has said, this is great. We want more. And it just means that as I grow and as other creators grow, being friends with the internet is more important, because the internet is going to reward you in ways that your immediate circles will not. Your immediate circles are there for social support, love, whatever, but that's your offline life. If the online world is responding so well to you, go all into it. What was the second part of the question? Ads. I haven't run ads yet. I'm about to run ads. I'm going to start running ads soon.
Yeah, it's cool. Even like I also the reason I even asked you that question about the community was because when I was building up, I was like, I can share it to most of my friends, ask them to come, but it's not going to make sense because they already know me. What I want is like, people who don't know me, they come and they ask me, and
Look at
that's
this
a good.
conversation right now. This is happening
Yeah,
because of the internet.
yeah, true. I wouldn't get you like if I didn't know you. I did not discover your channel.
Exactly.
And I still remember, I think I discovered you from the Zayn Mean podcast that you have done. Yeah, that was a
Zion
podcast.
Memon,
Zayn.
fantastic guy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Zayn, yeah. That was a podcast in which like I heard the whole thing and I liked the guest too very much.
Yeah, he's
Like,
he's he's a super bright guy, super bright.
yeah, yeah. And usually the most of the podcasts that you get, I feel, as I told you that you don't feel intimidated at all by the guest. Like how much I have seen your podcast, and I really like the way you communicate because I feel the questions are sharp and precise, like the way you do the writing. And I feel that with that podcast, it was like both of you are giving the right stroke
Mm.
to each other. It
Yeah,
was
it's
more like a
also yeah.
dost cast. Yeah,
It's because what happens is I'm not always a subject expert, but I have
yeah,
questions about that subject. So when you're circling a subject from outside, you can always ask the expert, "What's inside? Please tell me," and
yeah,
that creates a very nice dynamic.
yeah, true. After
Because
that,
I'm
I
not
just
saying,
discovered.
yeah, because I'm not saying, look, I'm a know-it-all. Now you tell me what you know. That's like, oh my god, clash of egos. I don't know. I mean, you're the guy.
Yeah.
Zain is the guy who makes games, right?
Yeah.
He's the guy
Hmm.
who does VR stuff. He's the guy who works with Anand Gandhi. He's incredible. I don't know about any of that.
Yeah.
Please tell me about your world. So if you allow that space to that other person to speak about what they do best, it's
Yeah.
nothing but mutual admiration after that.
True. So with that, like, what are your future plans right now? It might be the YouTube. Is like you want to continue with this, or you have like a bigger plan, something else.
Never
Big is a
reveal the
wrong
big
word, but
plan,
yeah.
Ryan Holiday. The grand strategies is for you, not for anyone else. What I can reveal
Yeah.
for now is there is going to be a writing service slash mentorship that is going to roll out maybe February or March. Let's see.
Wow.
My team and I are working on that. Yes. Beyond that, I think I'm going to still produce content because I like producing content. You're going to see
Yeah.
more. Uh, I don't know actually. I think for now, all I can say is there's going to be like a product or a mentorship coming out very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. Beyond that, yeah,
Cool.
I'm still going to upload videos every single day on YouTube for us as much as I can.
Yeah. Thanks. That's how I wanted to take it, and thanks for doing this.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, man.